cases that we get and people that talk to us, there's domestic violence. Domestic violence is, real.
Yes.
It's a real thing. When I first became a lawyer many years ago, the OJ case hadn't happened yet. And domestic violence was not a big thing. It was almost, I hate to say this because it dates me, but it was almost culturally accepted. When you have people that think otherwise. And, do you ever have a bad parent? Yeah, things happen like that. But generally, overall, people are getting divorced and breaking up. And it's generally not because of the kids. It's generally because of infidelity, money problems,
Yes.
meddling relatives on one side. But nobody mentioned, he's not a good father to the kids, so I'm leaving him. Have I ever heard that? Yes. But in 35 years, very rare.
I actually heard I stayed in this abusive marriage because of my children.
Right.
I heard that more than saying I left because it was abusive.
Right. Now you bring up an interesting topic. A lot of, cases that we get and people that talk to us, there's domestic violence. Domestic violence is, real.
Yes.
It's a real thing. When I first became a lawyer many years ago, the OJ case hadn't happened yet. And domestic violence was not a big thing. It was almost, I hate to say this because it dates me, but it was almost culturally accepted. Or if it wasn't accepted, it was, we'd look the other way, right? And then the O.J. Simpson case happened, and there was alleged domestic violence, and we saw pictures and, all that stuff. And, all of a sudden, we realize the effect that it's having on people, on children.
It's
and
real.
we get educated as time goes on, and all types of people, including judges and police officers and attorneys, are taking domestic violence training, not necessarily because they want to, but because they have to, and they're learning all kinds of stuff about domestic violence. What do you think about, tell us what the law is if you're a domestic violence perpetrator with respect to custody and visitation, and tell me how you feel about that.
Well, let me tell you how domestic violence has progressed from leaving the mark, starting from your body. You had to have some mark at some point to show there was a domestic violence. Then it got a little tighter to the point that if you yell to the other side and children are watching you yell, you committed a domestic violence. And the most recent statute now says if you act in such conduct that you place the party in apprehension of lack of movement, you committed domestic violence. Like if you do something that the person is afraid of moving because of what you said or what you have threatened, you committed a domestic violence. Okay. So this circle is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. If you are, domestic violence processes that you run in on an emergency basis and saying, look, I'm afraid such and such and such and such happened, and I'm afraid if this person doesn't stay away from me, I'm afraid that my life is in danger. My life, my children's life, everybody's in danger. The court will grant you a temporary stay away, which means the court will sign some of those papers you submitted to the court, gives it back to you. you will serve the other side saying, look, don't come near me until the court date. And the court date normally is about 3 weeks, 21 days away from the date you ask for a restraining order. 21 days later, you have to come to court and prove your case, bring evidence, bring your witnesses. Actually, it's a trial. You prove. If you are able to prove your case and get a restraining order against the other side, and custody is involved, the court can and most likely will grant you sole legal, sole physical custody of the child. That's one way of gaining custody if there is domestic violence. Again, if you look at it, one parent will gain custody because it is in the best interest of the children. Everything in family court with children, the root of it, the base of it, the look of it is about best interest of the children. So if you don't know the law, play the best interest law and it applies and it will win.